Hello and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Children and Young People's Scrutiny Review Board. I'm Councillor Danielle Lind. I'm just going to go through who's in attendance here this evening from the beginning going outwards. So at the front we have some representatives from Derby Send Alliance, so if you could introduce yourself, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jane Hutchby from Derby Send Alliance.
Amanda Scrutiny from Derby Send Alliance.
Councillor John Whitby, Mackworth.
Councillor Miles Patterson for Mickleham.
Councillor Gaurav Pandey, Mackworth Ward.
Hi there, Gamal Nizar, Derby City Council.
Umar Aslam, Youth Mayor. Councillor Kirkos, Alveston Ward.
Thank you. Any apologies? I think we have apologies from Councillor Pearce. Andy Smith, any further apologies?
Tracy Churchill.
Tracy Churchill, thank you. Okay, no late items to be introduced by myself as the chair this evening. Declarations of interest. Declarations of interest, anyone? As always, I will declare I am a parent of 7 children and I don't believe I have any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest to declare that preclude me from voting or discussing these items this evening. Okay, thank you. So moving on to the minutes held on the 12th of December, can we agree they're a true and accurate record of the meeting? Okay, I'll take silence as agreement. Okay, all agreed then. So moving on. So we're now going on to item 5, which is a summary of the consultation responses received for the proposals to consider changes to the way that the council provides discretionary travel assistance for eligible students aged 16 to 19 with special educational needs and disabilities. I will hand you over to Gamal to start off with. Thank you, Gamal.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very short presentation I'll go through just to set the scene a little bit. The council ran the consultation process from September till the middle of December. That information is now being drawn together and will be presented to Council Cabinet on 15th of February for consideration, and that will be a full report including a detailed report on all the consultation responses. That report will also be going to exec scrutiny on the 14th of February, and Chair, of course, you have a CUIP board meeting on the 13th of February and the full report will be available there also. And Chair, in terms of that process is still coming together, so it is a very short presentation today which is outlining some of the themes on the initial responses. And Chair, of course, I can't comment one way or the other in terms of what members may consider at Cabinet in terms of that decision-making process. Thank you, Lynn. So a little bit of background, a number of public events were held during the consultation window period, and there were 5 public events actually that were held for members of the public and parents, and the common themes around those events were around the amount of the proposed personal travel budget for post-16 may not cover the cost of travel assistance. 2, around resources to support children may not be adequate in relation to children who may not be able to travel independently. Thirdly, around what would be considered as exceptional circumstances when a young person may be entitled to a particular form of travel, such as taxi transport, and questions in relation to should a personal travel budget or any homeschool travel assistance be means tested. Thank you. In terms of the public online consultation, a total of 96 responses were received, 1 organisational response and 3 responses from the Youth Alliance group. And just to the right, those bullet points outline the common themes, again around definition of what exceptional circumstances may be, in relation to my child cannot travel independently, attendance at school and education may be put at risk, personal safety of young people and awareness, the amount proposed will not cover the actual cost of transport, increased stress to families and young people in terms of arranging travel and transport. Parents' commitment may prevent parents from transporting young people. Independent travel training will provide great opportunities for some young people, and observation in relation to a personal travel budget will provide greater flexibility for parents to make their own. Thank you. In terms of the actual engagement sessions and participation events with young people, 11 sessions were held and 72 young people took part in those sessions. Thanks. And Chair, here are just some themes graphically around the questions and initial responses from young people. The question was around what would help young people to get to schools or college, and of course the longer bar charts are kind of showing the theme there, that in terms of what would be helpful were primarily around good and effective travel training, accessible information in terms of that, and then also safety. So in that question around what would help young people to get to school, the theme was primarily on those bar charts that I've outlined there. Thank you, Chair. In terms of the second question around what do you think about young people and or parents being given funds for the year to spend on taxi, bus or petrol for travel to school or college, and just the purple blue chart, sorry, observation around yes it would be good, and other aspects around perhaps vouchers and bus vouchers and passes might be sensible as well. And there's a few other questions that are there as well. Thank you, Lee. In terms of what other help do you think young people might need to travel to school or college on their own? And the key ones are there, and again, travel training, accessible information, and disability awareness and training for bus, taxi and drivers in relation to those aspects. Thank you. In terms of the quality impact assessment that was completed and mitigations, and to the right or that group that did the quality impact assessment, kind of talked about an enriched independent travel training offer, communication strategy, refreshed post-16 to 19 homeschool travel assistant policy statement, online application forms, and partnership working in relation to mitigation measures. Thank you. So in terms of next steps, Chair, as I outlined earlier, the information is currently being drawn together for those reports. A report will be presented on the outcome of the consultation, including a full analysis of all the summary responses and depth of documentation on 15th February for consideration, 14th February at exec scrutiny, and 13th in relation to the responses received. So Chair, that's the short presentation, those themes. And Chair, as we discussed, you know, at the moment the information is still being drawn together. They're the themes that are there. I'm happy to answer questions actually on the consultation document. What I can't comment on is specific detail in relation to the consultation response to the detail, because that information is still being pulled together and readiness for Cabinet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before I open to the floor, I would like to ask one question regarding one of those slides in relation to one of the questions, what do you think about young people and or parents being given money for the year to spend on a taxi, bus or petrol for travel to school or college? Now, there's obviously a high proportion of yes, good. Is this a leading question, and has the council made it clear of the context surrounding this, i.e. In relation to the financial value, whether it be lesser, whether it be more? Was it explained to these young people what the context surrounding that question was?
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't at the meetings themselves, but in terms of the consultation document and the questions included in the consultation document, they were discussed with the local area Senco production group around questions that were to be included. But what I would say is that, you know, that those events, the colleagues who attended would not be kind of trying to present leading questions. There will be notes of those meetings that are there, and they will be broader than that. And Chair, in terms of the detailed report, we'll have more information around what young people specifically said in terms of the minutes from the meeting and their actual responses, so it doesn't kind of come across as leading questions in that sense.
Yeah, I just find it very difficult to comprehend that young people, vulnerable people with special educational needs and disability have basically been asked, do you want some money? And you know, the question that's come up is, yes, yes, good. It's like asking a child if you want some sweets. Well, they're going to say yes, aren't they? You know, I do worry about the integrity of that question, actually. I don't know if there's any further comment from the floor. Any comment? No? No questions? Any other questions?
Chair, I'm not sure, what can we question Gmail on?
Which is a scrutiny board. That's what we're there to do. We are there to scrutinise.
I mean, I got it wrong on the stick here, so I just thought it was going to present the findings of the consultation. Well, not even the... There's no decision, is there? So... I'm sure we can we ask anything? Or
well, this is a thing, isn't it, really? I mean, is there a failure of process here in that the results of the consultation are going to go forward with a recommendation without scrutiny, effectively, which is why we've come in and said, OK, you know, we want to scrutinise that. We are a scrutiny board. We're listening to the public. We're here. We want to do things right, which is why we are meeting today. And I think, you know, it's quite right that we do that, and that as board members, you have the opportunity to ask those questions. OK, Councillor Bonser.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at at item 6, the consultation background document, it's saying no other options have been considered. I mean, it'd be interesting, obviously, to hear the results of the consultation when they come through. But and I guess many parents of existing children in this situation will be against this move. But where it's saying no other options have been considered, I mean, what about phasing in and, you know, just, you know, to alleviate the big change for people that are halfway through the system? You know, my fear is that children will either drop out or find themselves in a position where they can't continue in education, and that was expressed as one of the themes that came through, and I think that's a serious consideration. And as you pointed out, I think as a scrutiny board, you know, it's our role here to take this consultation, you know, and the responses in detail and make a recommendation. Thank you.
One sec. Do we have any response to that, Camille?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, they are all good points in relation to that. And as I say, there may be or may not be consultation responses that have outlined that. But from a consultation document perspective that the council produced and consulted on, it was emphasising understanding and compassion around the change and the difficulties, but also outlining in relation to the date of implementation and not a phased approach, and in the context of outlining that post-16 transport, similar to what other authorities have done, is much more discretionary, but that's notwithstanding what colleagues and members are saying in relation to that. Of course, implementation from September 2023 brings with it challenges in terms of that step change, but the document that the council consulted on outlined that in the context of the date of the likely change, and almost the journey started in September 2022 in terms of that transition planning in effect. That change might be coming by September 2023, but that's notwithstanding there may be responses that come back that say actually there's different things, you shouldn't do this, as you can see from some of those things. Thank you.
Well, absolutely. You know, we need to, as councillors, we need to ensure that we're encouraging the greatest response as possible. And I think it's really important that it is scrutinised as such. Okay, Councillor Bonser, and then Councillor Patterson after. Thank you.
Yeah, again, in terms of exceptional circumstances, I think that's something that we want to unpick as well, because, for example, you know, I'm thinking about people who they may not have the transport links. Is that an exceptional circumstance?
Is that a question posed to officers? Yeah.
Yes, Chair. I mean, I think it's a slightly difficult one for me to answer, but in the fact that the report that will be going to Council Cabinet consideration will include a updated post-16 homeschool transport policy. It will set out in that report views in relation to what could be exceptional in that circumstance. And I guess that's where we are at the moment in relation to that report setting out and the new draft policy for consideration around what exceptional could be. You know, but good questions in relation to, I just can't comment on what it's going to specifically say, but there are, you know, parameters around that. For example, medical equipment, medical needs, specialist equipment that needs to be taken, and including factors that distances might be too far in relation to parents to be able to travel. The other side of that is that as a council we need to consider that in the context of if the exceptional criteria is so broad, then it might not necessarily achieve what the council is seeking to achieve as well. So, Chair, in summary, is the policy will be included in the report going to Council Cabinet. It will set out what the exceptional criteria is proposed for consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I find it very difficult to understand how this can go to Council Cabinet without having proper scrutiny and input within the recommendations that are being put forward here. Sorry, I did say I'd move on. Is it relevant to the question that I'm just discussing now? Same question. Okay, so we'll go over to Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, so just on your point around scrutiny, we've got another meeting coming up on the 13th. So we have an opportunity to scrutinise the report then. Obviously, we're sat in this meeting currently, and Gamal's hinting about what is and isn't in the report, and we're sort of all sat talking without fully knowing what's in the report. So, you know, for me, it would have made sense if we'd have just waited for our next committee meeting on the 13th, where we could have seen the report and then properly scrutinised it.
Well, I disagree with you there, Councillor Patterson, because actually there is no constitutional remit for them to accept any recommendations once that report has been written and the agenda for that meeting has been issued, which is why any recommendations from this meeting will be on the agenda and will go alongside that the recommendation decision from officers. Regarding anything else that we put forward is the discretion of the chair, the leader of the council, and it's up to him, and he could well say no, there is no constitutional remit was able to be able to do that, unfortunately, which is, yeah.
But we're making recommendations on a report we haven't seen. Is what you're saying.
Any recommendations sent on the 13th of February may not be accepted because it will be at the discretion of the chair. There is no remit constitutionally to have it added. Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Whitby?
Please. Yeah, I suppose it's just occurred to me really how, if there is no definition of exceptional circumstances in the consultation, I presume that's right, isn't it? I mean, just the very definition of the cohort, pretty much everyone's going to think they've got exceptional circumstances, I would have thought. Therefore, how can we really adequately consult on something like this if no one's got an idea whether they're going to end up having to have a personal budget or not? It seems like a major flaw to the whole thing. I mean, I'm not totally against the whole concept, I've got to say, but that seems insane to not have, no one's got an idea clearly of what exceptional circumstances are for this particular cohort of people.
Okay, any further questions from councillors? Any further questions? Your question. Any further questions? No? Do you want to come back, officer? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So just to reply to that one, in terms of what the consultation document did set out as an example was that exceptional criteria, for example, could be along the lines of medical needs. So the legal, but just to clarify that a little bit further, the DfE statutory guidance talks about mobility. So if I was trying to help the board here to understand what definitions of that medical could be, for example, so it could be a type of child, for example, that is bordering significant health and medical needs. For example, Ivy House Special School has young people with very difficult medical needs, which have a lot of medical equipment that needs to be taken with the young person to the school. So that's a definition as an example of what could be. On the other side, there could be young people that have a disability but are very mobile. So in terms of that, Chair, thinking that all of the cohort would just simply be eligible. I'm just giving a couple of examples of what that consultation document was outlining in terms of medical needs and those levels of medical needs and those young people, what the DfE refer to in terms of mobile young people who then may be eligible for travel and transport, but may be eligible for other types of offer rather than taxi transport based on their mobility. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, so Gamil, in order to achieve the 400 grand saving, what percentage of this cohort are going to have to be in the exceptional circumstances?
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, in terms of there is likely to be very few young people that are likely to be in the exceptional circumstances because there is a lower number of cohort, if I use Ivy House sixth form pupils as an example, in that sense of real medical, profound and multiple learning difficulty within that. And Chair, to also add, of course, the statutory guidance from the DfE outlines council's discretion for post-16, unlike pre-16, and a responsibility of local authorities to facilitate attendance rather than an actual attendance in there. But the cohort with high medical needs, of the 195 post-16 young people, is likely to be a lower percentage in the examples that I've just described. Thank you.
Can you just clarify for me that term, what is meant by medical needs? Does that include mental and physical health together, or?
Chair, I can't clarify that because there'll be case-by-case examples. The only one we've tried to do is to give an indication of where there's medical equipment. And it would be wrong of me to be trying to describe different types of physical or mental health which warrant particular type of travel and transport, because that would be based on medical evidence and assessment by health professionals in that sort of context.
I mean, ultimately, I'm sure the council doesn't want to widen that gap of inequality and disparity between physical and mental health needs. So I just think that, you know, as a board, we'd like clarification over what is meant by medical needs and if that encompasses physical and mental health needs aside in their own complexities, shall we say.
Thank you, Chair. The only thing I can advise on that is I think CWP scrutiny certainly need to consider on the 13th the content of those full reports. I can't comment on here and now around what is medical, what isn't, and what is in that report coming forward.
Any further questions, Councillor Patterson?
Well, would it be fair to say that a lot of the questions that have been asked tonight may or may not be in the report that we are yet to see?
I think, Chair, to clarify in terms of certainly in the report there will be definitions of exceptional criteria. The Home to School Transport Policy will include an updated policy statement in relation to that, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. What representative organisations and parent carers known to the authority were contacted directly by the council to alert them to this consultation? So, for instance, were communications sent readily to representative all representative organisations known to the council? Were letters sent to parent carers known to the authority?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of its circulation, it's gone as wide as possible it could be. I can't comment on the specifics that you signed, but what I can comment on is the communication went to as many contact details we had for parents within the system. So I know there are 1,000 approximately young people pre and post, so in order to get that. It went to on the school circular to every single school in the city. The consultation document was co-produced from last April, in fact probably February, with SEND co-production group in terms of consultation with them, circulation to them over 3 meetings, April, May, June, and then discussed at a formal meeting of the local area SEND co-production group prior to launch of the consultation, and formal discussion at the local area SEND board, and was circulated to all people on the co-production group and the local area SEND board to distribute, and was also shared as widely as possibly on the local offer website as well.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Pandy?
Chair, can I ask when is the deadline or the scheduled implementation of this consultation? When are you looking to, so when this gets passed and everything, when will this get implemented? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of implementation, as the consultation document set out, it's September 2023.
So, sorry. Then the change of, because we're having May elections, and change of administration can overturn the findings and suggestions or whatever is being set in this one. You can overturn it, isn't it? If a new administration is formed post-May.
Chair, I can only confirm the decision-making process. Council Cabinet will be taking its decision after consideration of the report on 15th of February, and including that consideration as the consultation document outlined was implementation from September 2023.
Okay, thank you. It would be nice if Council Cabinet could accept recommendations from the Scrutiny Board following good scrutiny, but hey, we'll do the best with what we've got. Any further questions? Councillor Bonser.
Yes, just finally, at 10.1, it talks about the very real risk of a legal challenge at judicial review. I wonder if you can just talk us through that, and the concern, of course, about the inability for people to effectively appeal against decisions due to capacity.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of judicial review, the council has been working on this for over 12 months, and the council's legal team have been advising on the process to be followed in terms of this type of consultation, and therefore, you know, it's been considered in that sort of context to have the right consultation process. That's not to say there might not be a judicial review, as the documentation reports probably set out already. But in terms of the council following due process, which generally triggers judicial review, that's why, Chair, in terms of sensible consultation over a 12-month period in effect, and probably longer, that whilst it's a difficult decision, depending on what the decision is, it has tried to factor in lessons from elsewhere. One, to do the process sensibly and sensitively to allow parents enough time to know about possible change, and two, around making sure the statutory process set out by the DfE to try and make sure correct steps are followed in relation to any risk of judicial review. That's, Chair, not to say that it might not happen. We're absolutely clear that it could happen, as it had happened in other councils, but the council has been taking necessary advice and necessary time in order to alleviate those. Sorry, I've forgotten the second bit of the question.
Yeah, it was just to do with the capacity and the home to school travels team to deal with appeals.
Thank you, Chair. So as a council, we are considering learning from elsewhere that teams have had to be strengthened in relation to stage 1, stage 2 appeals, which are outlined in the policy already. So additional resource will be kind of brought into the team depending on the decision in order to preempt those appeals resource. And that's, Chair, is from learning from other councils who experienced that sort of understandable change. Thank you.
Thank you. So can we just clarify, are the local authority expecting an increase in cases against the local authority in relation to these changes? And if so, what additional funding has been allocated to mitigate that, to deal with that?
Sorry, Chair, I didn't quite follow that.
Yeah, I'd like to know, is the council, please can you clarify if the council are expecting an increase in cases, legal cases resulting from changes? And if so, what extra funding has been put in to fund solicitors, etc., due to that?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think the question, if it's around, does the council kind of foresee a complicated judicial review, and therefore has it budgeted for that with additional legal resources? Chair, the answer to that is no. And what the council, we as a council have been doing, as I outlined earlier, was following due process set out in homeschool statutory processes, and to allow sufficient time, including a full academic year, for parents to be aware of changes. All of those help mitigate. But no, there isn't additional funding or resources that have been set aside for potential legal challenges and risks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor? No? No? No one else? No? Okay, thank you, Gamayol. Thank you very much. So we're moving on now, and we've been given a report. A report has been submitted to leaders in the council in relation to this consultation. Consultation feedback has been sent to us from an umbrella organisation, Derby Send Alliance. So I'm going to pass you over to one of the representatives from Derby Send Alliance, Jane Hutchby, who will talk you through their submission in relation to the consultation. Thank you.
Hi. So the full report is multiple pages long, and we've got lots and lots of examples for different schools, children with different needs, and different parenting approaches to the transport. It was interesting to see the numbers on there. They didn't quite reflect what we'd gathered as 6 partnerships across the city in multiple ways, face-to-face, online, telephone calls, things like that. I think City Council they talk about learning from other local authorities, but they've tried this in 2015 and 2017, so I'm hoping there's some learning coming from that as well. And then one big issue that local authority have got to understand is a personal budget has to be consented for by a parent or young person. And if you're going to inform the parent that they've got a choice about a personal budget rather than you're going to get a personal budget or no help, I don't think that's a choice. I think that's a force. It's definitely not leaving any room for choice. So yeah, our whole document talks about the consultation being a blanket approach because it's just one offer. The exceptions weren't clarified. There was nothing to support anybody to know how to make a really informed choice. And lots of parents across the city are still following the same feelings that were here before Ofsted in 2019, but why bother because they're not going to listen anyway. Parents have ticked a box and responded, but like you said, there was 97 responses, and yet Gmail said he sent out over 1,000. That doesn't really show a fair amount of responses to us. I'm not sure what you want me to discuss in this document that we've sent. I think we've been very clear. We accept that the council have got to try and save money. We understand that we've compared 2 in the city where a child travels about 6 miles a day on a taxi contract compared to nearly 30 miles a day on a personal budget, and the cost is a lot cheaper on the personal budget. So we understand that, but I think the local authority have got a lot of work to do on their personal budget ideas. What else do you think I should add? I don't really want to read the whole lot out. Yeah, we're not sure if the local authority have consulted with a full range of all of the schools that children go to in the local authority. Named in EHCPs, children travel far and wide, as we know. And we're not sure that all of those children have been captured. They certainly probably haven't had face-to-face, as been described by Gmail on some occasions. Gmail talks about the statutory guidance as well, but there's a comment in there about best practice, and I think that's been missed. Because there's a comment about, in the statutory guidance, about if you perceive a child will need transport at post-19, which is different to post-16, we will accept that. If they're starting a fresh course at post-19, they will be provided with transport according to the statutory guidance, and there is a comment in there about best practice. And if you think a child at 16 will still need that support at 19, then it's best to provide that transport. And I think your solicitors have maybe prepared you for one judicial review, but you've said that you sent these consultations out to 1,000 parents, and that's potentially 1,000 judicial reviews in the name of each single child. I think you've missed a big point there. Travel training programme, we were quite shocked to see that one provider had been given that role and it hadn't gone out to tender. Other providers in the city weren't aware of that travel training programme going out to tender. I'm not sure why that was chosen as one particular provider. When the provider was delivering their PowerPoint at one of the parent consultations, there was only a minimum number of children from transition 2 or young people from transition 2 who had been successful with the travel training. So I think you need to take it on an individual basis, and the travel training should have started a lot earlier than September. So I think Councillor Bonce's idea about a phased transfer would be more acceptable. There's nothing in the consultation about parents themselves who've got SEND and how the local authority will support them. I think there's going to be some discrimination going on if you follow the policy that you've released. There's loads, I could go on for hours. But I think as the SEND Alliance, we've prepared 6 partnerships worth of information that we've all collated from members of the public, relevant members of the public, And I can't believe that it's going to go, like everybody else has said, there's so many holes in it. How can anybody scrutinise? It's just vague and ambiguous.
Okay, thank you. Are you okay to take some questions? Is that okay? Yes. Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to know regarding the Send Alliance, how many organisations does the Send Alliance represent, and how did you get these results? How many children and young people did you consult, or does the Send Alliance represent? If you, thank you.
The aims of the Send Alliance are written at the very top of our document, and all 6 partnerships who form the Send Alliance, we're waiting on 2 more to reply to agree to join. But the main thing is there's been a massive gap in the diversity of responses that are coming back to the local authority. A lot of responses are coming back from white families who are of middle class, and that's missing a huge gap. The local authority are forgetting about digital poverty in the area, and they're certainly not covering the diverse needs of the city when they start communicating through Facebook alone or hoping that everybody can click a link and go on the internet. We didn't count how many, between the 6 partnerships, we didn't count how many people we'd actually spoken to. We've got a range of face-to-face, phone calls, meeting people, actually going out to meet people, not just people who've come to providers and asking them there on the spot, but going out and meeting people. And we've collated, like I said, plenty of examples across the city. Is that it?
Thank you. First of all, before I open to any questions, I'd just like to say thank you, because I think it's a very comprehensive report. It's obviously took you a long time, and there's been a lot of thought and effort gone into that. And obviously the alliances, you've took the time as an umbrella organisation to contact leaders in the authority and the cabinet member, myself and others, and I would like to say thank you for that. So yeah, if I open the floor to questions, if that's okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Questions? Send Alliance? No? Okay. Right then, so if we move on then. Sorry, Gamal, sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, no question really, just an observation really, Sarah. Just
Yeah.
to say, sort of Chair, that all the consultation responses that have been received from organisations will form part of the information that the Council's communication team is pulling together, and they will form the basis of the Council's response as well in terms of that. So
yeah, thank you.
Sort of views were welcome from everybody, including organisations that are represented here today, and they will be drawn together in relation to that report.
Absolutely, and that's why we're here today, isn't it, to draw that consultation responses today, so the board can actually make comments and any further any recommendations to Cabinet on that through the proper process. So I do appreciate that, and it's just such a shame that we haven't had more information regarding consultation responses. It is very, very much a summary, and to be fair, I can't really see much in that. Yes, Councillor Patterson?
If we'd waited till the 13th, that information would have been in the report, and we could have sat, and again, rather than speculate about the number of consultees, what organisations have been consulted on.
I must remind you that we would not, and I have said this before, we would not be able to get anything on that agenda. We can't put anything on that agenda. We aren't able to properly scrutinise to put anything over in that time frame. Okay?
You're the chair, so you can set the agenda.
All right,
so if you wanted the report on the agenda,
Councillor
you could have
Patterson,
set
I
that
don't
agenda.
think you're listening, so we're moving on from that now, thank you. I think we've established, unfortunately, there isn't proper process that precludes proper scrutiny in this council, and to be honest, I think it is absolutely appalling. It's so important, such a major impact on vulnerable children and young people in our city. and there isn't proper scrutiny. That is not acceptable.
Councillor, if the report came to the meeting on the 13th of February, you could make a recommendation and then it could be passed on to the chair of Cabinet, who would decide whether it could be.
I think that's a fantastic
accepted on the
idea,
agenda.
and I'm sure Cabinet would be welcome to have a look at that recommendation.
Unfortunately, it's beholden to the leader of the council whether he accepts it or not.
Have you asked him?
As I say, it's
Have you asked the
beholden
leader?
to
Because
him
you're
whether he
speculating
accepts
again
it or
that
not.
he's
I'm
not going to accept
getting,
it.
I'm not
So-
getting into a debate, Councillor Patterson. Thank you. So, we're moving on now then. So, we're moving on to the recommendation. Right, to consider all the information provided in the report, specifically the summary and responses received during the consultation period, including the guests that we've invited this afternoon. Thank you. And to make comments following discussions on the presentation and feedback that we've had this evening, and put forward any recommendations that you may wish to put forward. So, would anybody like to put forward any recommendations? Okay, so I'll put forward the following recommendation then tonight. If any of you would like to put any further recommendations at the discretion of the leader on the meeting on the 13th, then that will be up to members individually if they wish to do that, and up to the leader of the council whether he wishes to accept them or not. But personally, I'd like to ensure that the board gets its say and that it's done properly through a proper process. So I'd like to put forward the following recommendations. The Children and Young People's Scrutiny Board recommends that the report should be accepted by Council Cabinet, and that the Council Cabinet ensures that the issues highlighted within the Derby Send Alliance report are fully mitigated before any implementation commences. And further, that the local authority work in co-production with Derby Send Alliance moving forward. Any further comment? Any more recommendations? No? What I just said. Do you want me to say it again, Councillor Pandy? I'm sorry, I didn't realise you were asleep, I'm sorry. Okay, so yes, the Children and Young People's Scrutiny Board recommends that the report should be accepted by Council Cabinet, and that the Council Cabinet ensures that the issues highlighted within the Derby Send Alliance report are fully mitigated before any implementation commences, and further, that the local authority work in co-production with Derby Send Alliance moving forward. So, any further comment? Are we in agreement to have a vote on it? Councillor Whitby?
Yeah, I don't think it's clear what we're sort of signing up to here. What are all the recommendations of the Derby Send Alliance paper?
They are in the report I read today, and it's quite right that the authority seeks to mitigate any issues and challenge that they may be faced with, so that's why I'm putting the recommendation forward.
Sorry, wouldn't that be in the consultation process anyway?
Until we see the report, how do we know if it's been mitigated?
You were sent the report.
This report. The
Well,
council's
this is a
report.
problem. We've got very poor scrutiny in this council where it's not allowed.
You've jumped the gun with this meeting.
There is no
what's
proper
happened.
process.
If you'd have waited 2
I'm not
weeks.
going through the consultation with you again, Councillor Patterson. Moving on. So, we'll vote on that recommendation. Everyone for? Just me? Right, okay, so, yeah, that's lost then. All right. So, any further recommendations before we move on? No? Okay. So, we move on to the next item now. which is the topic work programme and review. So, any comments on that? No? Okay, we're all happy with that. Okay, thank you for coming this evening, and I'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank you.